Let's take a dive in and check out Skorid the Halfspawn. Now, to be honest, his kit is pretty simple. He's a damage dealer. Now, if he does good damage, he's a good champion. If he does poor damage, then he's not a great champion. Real quickly, before we showcase everything, I want you to understand what's going on because I don't talk about it later in the video. But his A1 has a chance of applying debuff spread, taking hex debuff and placing it on all enemies. If a target isn't under a hex debuff, we'll spread one other random debuff instead. So basically, it's prioritizing the hex and spreading that. His A2 ability attacks one enemy. Before attacking, places an increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns. Repeats the attack on all enemies under Hex. This is like Mashald, not like Trunda. So it's going to be the same type of stuff as Mashald. Mashald's an awesome Hydra champion. Granted, his is on his A1 ability. This attack will ignore shield buffs against targets under Hex debuff. Kind of irrelevant for Hydra. And then his A3 is an AoE attack. Before attacking, places Hex debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. This is awesome. It could go through Poison Cloud, all that kind of stuff, because he's placing it before attacking. The damage inflicted by the skill increases by 20% for each Hex debuff placed, which is good. This means against decapitated heads, you're going to be doing some potentially very high damage numbers, but once it's placed, it's not going to do the 20% boost again. Heals this champion by 20% of their max HP for each Hex debuff resisted or blocked. Probably not going to be really very relevant though. And then his passive fills this champion's turn meter by 10% when attacking targets without a Hex debuff, and then ignores 15% of a target's defense when they're under a Hex debuff, getting you closer to true damage. And then for his blessing, something to consider. I mentioned this later on in the video, but we may get a chance at his 5-star soul. So something like Nature's Wrath would be absolutely incredible, or even Brimstone would be very, very good on a champion like this. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I just want to touch on those real quick. Let's jump into some damage tests. I'm not doing a full max HP damage to see like what we can get with Bad L plus Gerp Tuck plus all that stuff. I just want to see how much he hits for with a typical setup, and we're going to compare that to another champion who is known to hit pretty hard and has no blessings on my account. So 1.2 million damage with the first A3 skill. The second A3 skill, let's see what we do. We did 1.2 million the first time, and then we did 1.2 million. So 1.2 million both times with the A3. Now with his A2, we actually need to have the targets under Hex for this to really work. But the single hit, 113,000 damage. We spread it to everybody else. It's going to be pretty comparable. If we have a champion like Mithrala in here, let's go ahead and test this out real quick. We can see, okay, she'll place Hex on everybody. Hopefully she misses 1 Hex, but you can get an idea of what it's going to hit for. So we'll hit the champion over here. Okay, 81 and then 128. So it's basically going to be a 128 times, what is this, 5? So about 500,000 or 600,000 it should be across all the champions. So since Skorid's not going to get the damage boost from him placing the Hex all the time, because other champions may place it or it may already be applied, let's go ahead and show real quick what his damage looks like if Mithrala places the Hex on everybody except for the Venus apparently. So we'll do 1 with everybody except for Venus. So he gets 1 Hex that he places. He does 635,000 damage. We'll try it again, see what happens here. Mithrala hopefully places on everybody. There we go, good. The decreased defense on everybody, and then A3. See what his damage is here. It's of course gonna vary. It's 1 million damage. Not really sure why it's so high considering we did 1.2 million with placing the hexes. I don't really know what's going on there. But let's try it one last time. So 2 turns, 2 turns, 2 turns. Everything's 2 turns. Now with this, we got a 3-turn Hex there. So it actually increased the duration. That may have counted as him placing that, which is fantastic. Matter of fact, there's actually 2 of them. So that may be changing the amount of damage we're dealing. 746,000 damage, just for some comparison. Now, his build is pretty good. Like, this is a build that I would use on a champion who I actually want to bring into some content that's relevant to my account. So, for Dragon specifically, he's looking at 6,800 attack, 206 speed. To be honest, it's a little bit slow. 250% crit damage, and accuracy to actually land the debuffs, which is the Hex in this case. So fully booked, no blessings. That's very important. For some comparison, basically 1-to-1, we're going to swap him, who has 1498 base attack, for Trunda, who has a much higher base attack. Now, I don't know how they're going to compare. I assume Trunda's going to do quite a bit more, but I do want to just try this out. 1-to-1 swap. So Skorid actually has currently, let's see, 6876 attack. I'm not going to scale their attacks to match because that would be kind of misrepresenting the test. Matter of fact, I should actually probably take the accessories off, but it doesn't really matter. We're just gonna preset manager, try on, equip, 7,300 attack. There we go. 254 crit damage, 225. We're gonna throw on a Slayer ring real quick. This attack ring, there we go. So now she has 100% crit rate and good speed, better speed, good attack, and good crit damage. Her masteries, Helm Smasher as well. Let's see what she does. So we all know Trunda hits pretty daggone hard. Now the thing with Trunda though is that she doesn't hit hard because her kit is supposed to hit hard. She hits hard because she's a little bit bugged, to be honest. So we're gonna do this AoE hit. Her A2 hits especially hard on Hydra. It's not how it's supposed to function, but we'll see what she hits for here. Okay, so her double hit, she procs some accuracy, got the HP burns out there. But that hit, let's see, it is a double hit. Keep that in mind. She did 708,000. We'll do another test real quick with her to make sure we get some, pretty reliable results, or at least somewhat reliable. So we'll do the A3 once again. She lands the HP burn on 4 targets, so most of them, unfortunately. So that's going to be hit or miss. Sometimes she's going to land it, sometimes she's not. Against wave-based content, she'll probably land that fairly often, especially if you have quite a bit of area bonuses into, say, Dragon or whatever. But for some reason, even 175 accuracy, she's still landing it. But let's see what that A2 hits for. That's really her bread and butter. And to be honest, it's not even comparable in Hydra. Like, she does absurd amount of damage. But let's see this A2 ability. There we go. Basically destroys everybody. The A2 is insane. She does 1.1 million. So while this is going to look like she's comparable to Trunda, I'm not trying to say that Skorid is comparable to Trunda, because he's not. He's not going to do the same damage as she does in Hydra. It's just not how his kit's going to work. But just from this comparison right here of a champion who does good damage, being Trunda, she has 2 AoE skills. That is what Skorid does comparatively. Now, another champion who I actually kind of want to test out is Mashald. Mashald hits very hard, and Skorid is going to have some similarities, honestly. So Skorid's A2 ability is going to spread the hits on targets who are under Hex. Mashald's A1 is going to spread his hits to targets under Leech. He's also going to place his own Leech, but it's going to be relatively comparable. Mashald can do some serious damage. So we're actually going to swap this over and see what he does. So he does have 2 blessings, but I'll actually go ahead and just take the blessing off of him. Can I do that? No, I don't think I can, actually. So we'll just leave Phantom Touch on there. It's not a huge deal. It should be an okay comparison, but he will have quite a bit more attack. I actually built a team for a takeover recently with Mashald on the team, and Mashald actually outdamaged Taras, which is crazy. Like, Mashald's, granted it was a +4 fully awakened Mashald, but he's a beast. Mashald is so good. So we're going to open up this A2, place Leech on everybody, got Leech on everybody, and then A1, boom, boom, spreads everything. Very good. We do have the Hex out there as well, so some of that's going to contribute to Mithrala, but 606,000 damage. So to be honest, just from that very short, quick, rough damage test, Skorid's damage is actually pretty respectable. Now, when it comes to things like Hydra, it's all about building the team around the champions. I want to show you something in the dungeon content before we get over to Hydra, though. So for dungeon specifically, Skorid can do Spider and do it pretty well. Let's go with Newt and actually put Skorid into a set of gear. Here we go. We got a somewhat ragtag team for Skorid. Essentially what's going to happen is we have Maneater for the unkillable. We have Terminator boost from Arbiter to make my slow Skorid make sense. We have Newt with the triple hit A3. Not needed. You could do a different max HP champion. That's fine. And then we have Kymar for the resets. So Skorid smashes everything. We get the 2 Spiderlings eaten. Skorid's going to come in and do the A3 once again. He's going to get a pretty good sized Terminator boost since he's placing the Hex on champions who, well, didn't have it to begin with. So he's a Terminator boost. Newt's going to do A3 again. It's going to get very close to killing the Spider. Doesn't quite, and then Skorid does his stuff. Super simple, super easy, fast Spider run there. Honestly, I'm kind of curious now to see how he could do replacing Seer in a team where I typically use Seer. So now I want to take a look at him in Dragon. So this setup, I've turned off Mithrala's A2 because his A3 will actually essentially get 20% less damage if he's not the one placing the Hex. So let's try it. We have Ghostborn just for the increased attack. No real reason for that. And something I want you to keep in mind is that he is currently no blessings. And typically we have the fusion events afterwards that get you up to a 5-star blessing. So if you're looking at a 5-star blessing for him, he actually becomes very enticing potentially, because a 5-star blessing opens up, well, 5-star cruelty for Hydra, or 5-star nature's wrath, or whatever that blessing is that boosts his damage based on the amount of debuffs he's placed. So now you start getting into the realm of, okay, this dude could actually be a legitimate Hydra damage dealer for some of your teams, assuming you go for his 5-star soul, if it's available. So now I want to take a little bit of a look at Skorid and Hydra. Now with Hydra, you could argue that it's just as easy to put a champion like Necmo in a curse set and let him apply the hex himself, and that frees up more space. On the flip side, if you have a champion like Skorid who can keep up hex very consistently, you can put Necmo in a provoke set instead of a curse set. So now you have a champion bringing the hex, you have a champion having an AoE chance of placing the provoke, and then you can fill in the other roles however you want. I don't really want Ruel here, honestly, so I'm going to drop him. I don't need Duchess either, so let's just use Shamail in that spot. Maybe I even throw in Obero. You never know. I like Obero, so I might just throw her in here. But we'll go ahead and find a Inquisitor Shamail and get this going. Where's Shamail to cleanse the fears? Bada bing, bada boom, there he is. And we'll load him right there. So this will be on, I'm going to do it on Brutal, not Nightmare, because Nightmare is a little bit too difficult for that team specifically. We have Leech, we have decreased defense and block buffs. We already have decreased defense from Obero AoE. So if we get a champion who could bring block buffs plus some extra stuff, that would be awesome. So we'll throw Kantra in here just for a little short, quick test. Basically, she's going to apply a lot of debuffs, which works out well because Obero wants a lot of debuffs anyways. It's going to be best if Kantra was in like Relentless or Reflex, but this will be fine. This will be fine. So Skorid, just for the damage test, we'll let him run for a little while. Don't want Obero using any of her stuff like that. So she's still going to do pretty good. Obero will still do good because of the ally attacks from Padrig. Not as good as with Mikage, but now we actually have some support, some heals. Actually, matter of fact, we don't even need that. We'll just put Mikage in the place of that because she's going to give increased attack and increased crit damage. Padrig is going to do basically the same. We have plenty of support, plenty of heals from the Leech that's going to be popping off like crazy. So we'll just turn this off. A1, A2, and then what I'll do is I'll just step away for like 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll see what kind of damage is dealt in this run. All right, so this run's been going on for almost 7 minutes now, and we're getting a pretty good idea of how much damage he can deal. Now, Obero's placing the decreased defense, Kantra has a chance of placing the weaken, but we just now hit for 802,000 damage on the head of Torment, the exposed neck. Now, there's no weaken applied, but that could have been a 1 million damage hit. There's a few things to consider with this. Remember, he does not have any blessing whatsoever. If you were to get a 5-star or even maybe a 6-star blessing, that was a single hit into that spread single hit, which hit very solid as well. He has no blessing. If I was to put a blessing on him, that would be an extra 758 attack, as well as 38% crit damage, but also the effects from the blessing. So the new Nature's one, whatever it's called, Nature's Bounty, I forget what it's called, but that one alone would increase his damage a good chunk. If you got Crushing Rend at 6-star, that would increase his damage significantly as well. So there's a lot of things we can do to really boost his damage. Honestly, his damage looks pretty good. In this Hydra run as an example, like, I can respect his hits. Let's see a little bit more. I want to see a little bit more from him because whether I use him or not is irrelevant. It just depends on if you're going to use him on your account. And currently, I mean, there's not a ton of champions who can place Hex. You can do the Hex set, but the champion who you're putting into a Hex set could also bring a Provoke set. So kind of depends on your account and what you have more of, basically. Let's see what he hits for here if he does the AoE skill. So there we go, 586,000, pretty solid hits. He's placing the Hex, so the second one of that is going to be a little bit lower, but the first time he does that AoE skill, it's going to be a little bit better. That double hit is 580,000 damage, so it's a pretty solid hit. Now let's go ahead and back out of this and see how much damage he dealt. Keep in mind that he's going to take some damage from Obero because of the Hex and be boosting his damage a little bit. So while it says 30 million, he didn't quite do 30 million. He probably did more like 25 or something, maybe 23. But it's still pretty good, I'd say. Obero is joining in on Mikage's every time she does an A1 ability. Obero has 6-star Crushing Rend. Obero is specifically tailored to do Brutal Hydra. Like, I've specifically built her Slayer set. She's ignoring all the defense. She's hitting hard intentionally. Skorid, on the other hand, is no blessings and is doing very well. So is he going to replace like top damage dealers? Probably not. But is he going to be an option for a lot of players in Hydra? I honestly think he could be. Something you're going to hear probably from a lot of content creators, but also other players, is that he's a bland damage dealer, and there's already tons of damage dealers. But if you're a player saying that, or you're a player who feels that way, you have a ton of damage dealers. But you could be a player who your only Hex option is Mithrala. If that's the case, or the Hex set. If that's the case, well, you could very much benefit from having Skorid on your team, in your collection. If you don't have many Hydra damage dealers, if all of your Hydra damage dealers are shoved into your Nightmare team, well, maybe you could use a brutal Hydra damage dealer like Skorid. He's not going to be the most tanky. I mean, he has 16,000 HP, 980 defense. So you do have to keep him alive. But if you can, I think he can bring some decent damage to the team. And also some good utility with the Hex. He's going to be boosting his turn meter. Technically gives himself increased attack, so you don't even need the increased attack if you didn't want to bring that, which is awesome. In this team, we have increased attack, but it's not required. So that's the Hydra showcase. I think he will probably be in some very high damage Hydra teams. I think it's possible that he could be in a team doing 1 billion damage. I think it's likely. I think it's more than plausible. I'm actually considered doing that. With my Obro team, I usually use this one right here. No, with no Skorid, I usually use Padrig instead. But a team like this may be able to push 1 billion. Possibly. I don't know if Skorid's needed or not, but I could even drop Krisk. Maybe. No, I have no decreased speed in that case. I may be able to rework this a little bit and fit him in there and honestly push 1 billion damage. He does hit hard enough where it's got me contemplating that. And if we get a 5-star blessing for him, I will most likely use him in some Hydra teams, so I will be going for the fusion. But if you want to jump over to the arena real quick and test him out over there, I would like to show you guys a few matches, but to be honest, it's not going to be a great example because the test server is very limited, but also he's going to get polymorphed basically, right? Like he's not a amazing champion to stop polymorph. It's going to happen. We will try to use a Armons here, I guess. Can I be faster than his Kymar? Maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Okay, so I am faster than some champs. Let's just go ahead and do the AoE. I'm just going to do this on Duchess. This is not the best play, but I'm going to do it just because I want to get Armand to take a turn. So we're going to steal turn meter and see what Skorid hits for. Assuming we can go before the Mr. Cockadoodle do over there. Actually, just kidding. We're just going to make him a sheep. Chicken turned to a sheep. Easy peasy. So now we're going to use Skorid's A3. See what he hits for. Hopefully just obliterates everybody. Because we're wanting to place that Hex from him. So I want to make sure he gets his A3 skill up. So here we go. A3 with increased attack up. I think it kills everybody. No Hex on the Duchess. It's okay. Hits hard enough to just obliterate everybody else. Because he's doing good damage. But you could get polymorphed. He did 206,000 against YST's team. We could get polymorphed if there was polymorph over there. But on lower levels of the arena, there's not that much polymorph, honestly. Polymorph is a problem in the higher levels, but in the lower levels, it's not as rampant. So you don't have to really stress about that as much. But in the higher levels, you 100% do. So we'll steal some of their turn meter, and then we'll sheep the Duchess. And let's see what he does here. So they cleanse. That's fine. We're going to use him to, just a moment, use the A3. Turn it to 1-time speed. We got poly, baby. So how many polymorphs do we got? We got 1 polymorph. That's all. Just 1 polymorph. That's all it takes. Just 1 poly, and it's done. We're going to go against this team again. I'm actually going to put a accuracy aura from Mithrala in here because I did get resisted by that Duchess just now when I was testing this out. So we're going to try this real quick just for the sake of the video. But this is an excellent example. This team is very tanky, very likely to just survive all the stuff we're about to do. So we're going to try to steal the turn meters, and then we're going to steal the block buffs from everybody, hopefully. There we go. Block buff stolen. I'm not going to place no Hex on anybody. Kandrafon doesn't do anything, thankfully. And now we're going to use this A3. Let's see what it hits for. Should kill a sheep. So hits for, it kills everybody. Doesn't kill the sheep, but it kills everybody else. That's pretty good, honestly. He has Hex. I kind of wish he was like immune to Hex or something. Why did it fall off of him? I don't know, but it doesn't really matter, honestly. So we're going to use the A2 again, see what he hits for with his A2 ability on the Duchess. Duchess, once again, is going to be pretty tanky, pretty survivable. Pretty solid. Let's see. So A2, not that much damage, right? Didn't do that much, but he should have gotten a turn meter boost from that. Now, if she's under Hex, he's going to ignore some defense anyways, which is fantastic. We'll just sheep her again. And see if he has the A3 available. Almost, right? It should come up just a moment, basically. Yeah, A3 again. Should kill everybody, right? It won't place the Hex on anybody, unfortunately, because we don't have enough accuracy. But that's okay. She may be resident. Okay, no. We end up killing him, which is great. So he is a damage dealer option. He can nuke through some pretty tanky teams, obviously. This team right here, I'm not going to be faster than, unfortunately. But this one, let's see. I'm probably not going to be faster than them either. But hey, why not try, right? Why not give it a shot? I may be faster than Commodus. Let's see. Can we go and try to kill the Siffy? Maybe. Okay, we can yoink some of their turn meters. He's going to smack my Armons into Stone Skin, though, so that's okay. We'll sheep the Marichka. And then we'll steal the turn meters again. But this time stun them. There we go. Beautiful. So this may be somewhat of an Armon showcase here. That's okay, though. It's fine. It's fine. It's no problem. And then we'll not use the A3 because we're on cooldown. He put us on cooldown from Commodus, which is no problem. We're just going to go ahead and drop the Siffy. Easy. Commodus, we're going to try to kill him pretty quickly, hopefully. I want to get back around to his A3 ability. Where is his A3 at? Come on, buddy. Let's see it. Should have thrown in a Kymar or something. Here we go. A3. Place the Hex on everybody, basically. And smashes them. Does pretty well also. Now, the cool thing about this is that unfortunately we're locked out of a skill, but we got that cleansed. Awesome. So I want to just go ahead and kill the Siffy with his A1, see if we can. I mean, it's hitting for 67k, which is pretty respectable. Now we're going to do one hit on him. It's going to bounce to Taras as well. 36k. Not a massive hit by no means, but it's a decent hit, right? Like was slowly working down Taras. And Victor's team, I mean, he's a very, very strong player. So this team is not an easy one. We have three champions. We almost did it. So Skorid's damage, I don't think is bad. I don't think it's too bad at all. I don't think it's going to be game-changing. Like, obviously, if you have Polymorph over there, it just becomes pretty rough situation, basically. But if you need a damage dealer for the arena and you're relatively lower, it could be a decent option for you. It really could. Let's go ahead and sheep the Duchess. Use him to... We'll do this with no increased attack. Just the hexes. Boom. Kills them both. But you don't have to hit that hard in the arena to get a kill, right? For some teams. Some teams you have to hit way harder. Is he a top tier nuker? No. Am I going to be using him over Wukong? No. But will I be using him? Sure. Possibly. Sometimes. Probably not very often, to be honest. Because I got good options. But if you're a player who has plenty of options, then you're probably not considering him too much, honestly. If you have tons of options for champions, you won't need to use him, basically. So we'll try to get this sheep down very soon, hopefully eventually. Okay, we're not going to use the A2. We don't need to. We'll just use the A1. What's it hit for? 50k. 50k on A1 is not too shabby. Not too bad at all. Don't need to try to finish this out. It's no big deal. He died. He's squishy. He's a damage dealer, so they're typically squishy. But his damage, he did 206,000. Definitely not bad. So we got a solid A3 ability that can do some work against some champions. Good defense ignore. There's better options than him for sure. But at the end of this, guys, my opinions on Skorid is a champion who, if you're looking for some help in Spider 10 hard, he can do it. If you're looking for a champion who brings a Hex and Hydra, who could also push your damage, he can do it. If you're looking for a champion who could possibly be some arena action, maybe for 3v3, if you don't have plenty of options, he could do it. But if you're looking for a champion who's going to change your account completely, I don't quite think he's going to do it. But on the flip side, if you're somebody who's pushing Hydra and you don't have tons of options and you think we will have a chance at his 5-star soul, then going for him, I think is extremely valuable because the damage he was dealing, if he was doing 800,000 damage and this is going to boost his damage by 15%, let's do this times 1.15, right? 920,000 damage just from the percentage boost from that skill. That's an extra 100,000 something damage, 120,000 damage right there. It's pretty significant. But then you have to consider, okay, now he's getting extra chunk of crit damage, also an extra chunk of attack. So now he's going to be even better, hitting even harder. You could even drop the accuracy. I could tune him up quite a bit better than this if I really wanted to use him in Hydra. But he's a champion who I think is, you might as well, if you have the resources, you might as well go for him. Is he going to be game changing? For some, maybe. For others, no.